Tim, welcome back. Always glad to have you hanging around. And again, my weekly, just a few thoughts for you. Certainly not dull these days, that's for sure. And things continue to move at a interesting pace here in the state of Illinois as we, I don't know, what have we been in? Stay-at-home order for it seems like 6 months now. I don't even know how long it's been. It's been long. So, on a couple of different areas we need to hit. First of all, we need to talk about Monday, just yesterday, IHSA released their June board minute meetings, which certainly the big headline was the fact that basketball is going back to University of Illinois from Peoria, which certainly is a big story on the high school level. But from a football perspective, this might have got overlooked a little bit. There was a little bit of tidbit and notes that I think, as I mentioned, I think kind of got overlooked and overplayed here a little bit. But again, I threw it on the premium board, the free board right away after I saw it. In the action items of the release from the IHSA on Monday, basically the board approved the recommendation on Stage 2 return to play guidelines developed by the IHSA Sports Medicine Advisory Committee. Again, kind of blah blah blah. You can go to my free message board and read it, or find the release at IHSA.org. So it says a Stage 2 return to play guidelines aim to align with the Phase 4 of Restore Illinois plan, which is Governor Pritzker's march to get us back to somewhat normalcy. So again, Phase 4 for the state is supposed to implement at the end of June. So again, all these plans are kind of marching lockstep. There is supposed to be feedback regarding the Stage 2 guidelines sent to schools today. So hopefully someone out there will be able to get us a copy of that, and we'll be able to share that with you, the fans, as well. Most importantly, off this note, though, said the board voted to allow 20 contact days and eliminate the no contact dead period, which generally is that first week of August or so. Once you wrap up your July camp, a lot of schools take off a week or two. That is by design. So that is a built-in quote-unquote dead period for all IHSA sports. That is going to be rescinded this year. The contact days have not yet been reinstated for IHSA member schools, but could be as a part of the Stage 2 return to play guidelines. So what they're telling you is that once we go back into the Stage 2, part of this is going to be the contact days will be allowed. Now, what will that mean for football teams? I'm going to guess we could see some, certainly no big organized 7-on-7 team stuff, but I think it's possible we could see some things thrown together. And again, we still don't have details, so we don't know if there's still going to be some form of social distancing. Will schools be allowed to commingle with others, or are they going to keep everyone separate? We don't know, but bottom line is, I mean, I look at this as a positive. Anything we continue to do to at least have a map and a guideline to leading us up to kickoff, I consider a positive in this day right now. This, to me, was a definite positive. And everyone else I had talked to several coaches and some administrators, they agree. This is definitely a positive. So I didn't want that to get lost, because it seemed like it's gotten buried in quite a few of these stories. Understandably so. And then the other thing I wanted to discuss a little bit, and we talked about IHSA basketball going back to Champaign. I think there's an impact here for the football sites. So here's where we're at with football hosting sites. 2020 state finals will be in Champaign. That'll be it for Champaign from this current contract. 2021, the entire contract is up and over with in DeKalb in 2021. So in 2022, we will have a new contract for football sites. Now, I've been saying for a long time now, and I'll continue to say, I truly feel Illinois State is going to get back into this. I mean, I've had discussions in the recent past with administrators, some coaches at Illinois State, and they all agree that they are all on board with trying to get IHSA games back in Illinois State. And it's been interesting because a lot of the fans out there, and myself included, I mean, loved having them in Illinois State. It's kind of a perfect size venue. It'll look full. It'll sound full. I mean, you can't be really more centrally located in the state really than Illinois State for the most part. Only a couple-hour drive from Chicagoland. So if you haven't been to Illinois State in a while, you need to get down there. A lot of changes. I mean, we'll just start with Hancock Stadium, and that has been totally renovated. And I mean, just Bloomington Normal itself is really, it's amazing the amount of growth and development in that area. So I definitely think ISU is going to be a major player. I don't know about University of Illinois. And again, Illinois has taken some shots as far as being a host. It's too big. It's too cavernous. Yes, I agree. But overall, I think Illinois has been a pretty decent host. First of all, I love the fact that it's in a Big Ten facility. It has a big-time feel. Again, Illinois has the indoor practice facility right next door. Teams can warm up there. Locker rooms are top-notch. I mean, media facilities are top-notch. I know you don't care, but the media people, we kind of care. Just everything. It's impressive at Memorial Stadium in Illinois. And again, I think overall, been a pretty good host for the football side. So I don't know if Illinois is going to get involved. My feeling is now that they've won basketball, and I think another important point in this, and kudos to the IHSA for finally doing this, the era of the 5 and a 10-year deal for hosting sites is done, and it should have been done a while ago. And that goes for football. There is no way I sign more than a 3-year deal with anyone for football. Again, now that Illinois won basketball, I don't know. I would think they'd want to be involved in football, but they've had it for a while now. And from a scheduling standpoint, I think part of the reason why that we're doing this every other year was because Illinois' Big Ten schedule expanded a game, kind of interfered with that Thanksgiving weekend date. So I don't know. Maybe it's too much of a hassle that Illinois just doesn't want to get involved. I have not heard one way or the other as far as the feel for people down in the Champaign area, but I definitely will continue to dig that out. And then, of course, Northern Illinois. And I think NIU has been a good host. Yeah, there's a few gripes. Certainly the media will gripe because of the press facilities, which, again, have really never been updated since the 50s. And I don't even know if it's the 50s. It just feels that way. But outside of that, I think DeKalb's done a really nice job. I think the crowds have been good. I think it's a great facility, Husky Stadium. Fans are on top of you, which I really like. It sounds loud. It plays really well. In a perfect world, I would love to see we continue to do this rotating every other year deal, because intentionally or unintentionally, I think the IHSA stumbled upon something positive here, meaning you've been able to, I think it keeps the host cities kind of more involved. I think when these host cities win those long-term contracts, I think we've seen it with other sports. The first year or two, there's a lot of excitement. After that, it kind of wanes. And I think every other year kind of keeps things fresh, keeps people on their toes, and I think we all benefit from that. So I hope in a perfect world, I think Northern's done nothing to not earn another shot, and yet I think Illinois State is going to make things very interesting as well. So we'll see. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. Again, we have another year plus before we get to that, but just keep that in the back of your mind, because that is going to become the other bigger issue as far as hosting sites. All right. From a recruiting standpoint, we continue to see more commitments. They've slowed up a bit. So just to give you an idea right now, class of 2021 in the state of Illinois, I already show 147 kids having verbal offers right now. Now, again, it includes D2 offers. It includes some Ivy League offers, which are technically roster spot offers. So there's a little leeway in playing the numbers, but it is considerably high. And then you look at verbal commitments. We already have 51 kids in the state of Illinois that are verbally committed. So, again, all tied into the COVID-19 pandemic. Kids are deciding earlier. It seems like more kids are being kind of nudged. I wouldn't say totally forced into an early decision, but we're starting to see, as I talked about a video or two ago, the MAC level, the FCS level, they are starting to nudge kids along in this decision-making process. That is going to continue. The kids out there that have offers, I know there are some kids that have multiple FCS offers, and again, they feel that they can play at a higher level, and that's great. And it's great that those kids have confidence in themselves and want to be able to show it. Let's face it, you're not going to be able to really generate a ton of additional recruiting interest until the fall, until we get into the season and you're able to start generating some senior year tape. So it's a gamble. If you're one of those kids and you've got a good amount of, say, FCS offers from some really good schools, but you're going to wait and play the game a little bit, you need to understand now more than ever, those offers could disappear very quickly. So be forewarned, parents. And of course, I think the other impact of this is the 2022s and the 2023s. Yeah, some kids have gotten some offers, but I think things would have been progressing much faster for those underclassmen groups than they have so far. And again, I don't see that changing. I know that there's a handful of camps that are still on the books for late July. Just know going into it, there generally will be no college coaches. I think D2, D3, their rules are a little bit different from FBS and FCS, but in theory, and for multiple reasons we've talked about in the past, I don't think you're going to see very many coaching staffs on the road looking at kids in late July. I just don't see it happening. So, again, tying into COVID, if one of those coaches happens to get sick on the road, they bring it back to their team, could literally wipe out an entire season for a college football team if that was a scenario. That's why I just don't think, even at those different levels, you're going to see a lot of coaches on the road in late July. I think they're just going to wait until the fall to start reevaluating and looking harder at kids. So that's kind of what's going on the recruiting side. Again, I'm following it every day. I'm putting up stories every day, so continue to follow. Follow me on Twitter, by the way, at EDGYTIM, at EDGYTIM, and try to keep you updated as best I can. All right, and finally, we need to get into this. So this is crazy. So the Chicago Public League, as everyone knows, the IHSA announced their Stage 1 return to play, where teams are finally back. You're seeing this week in particular, more and more high school teams have started their team conditioning camps, as we'll call it, under the current COVID-19 restrictions, smaller than groups of 10 working out at the same time, no commingling, but it's a positive step. Teams are, quote unquote, officially returning to work, which is great. Well, except for the Public League. If you're the Chicago Public League, you still have no plan in place, no time frame to when Phase 1 will be allowed for the CPL teams. There's no word from anybody, and it's crazy. And again, look, I'm someone that I've been doing this for 25 years this year. I've dealt with the Public League on many different occasions. I understand that, it's you got a million different bureaucracies involved and politics and everything else. So, it's incredibly frustrating at times dealing with the Public League on various levels. Yet, they managed to get it done under, I'm sure, just incredibly difficult circumstances. But in this case, when I'm hearing from coaches, I'm hearing from players that what is going on? I mean, thank God for Mike O'Brien and the Sun-Times, because let's face it, the Tribune has nothing going on sport-wise, high school sport-wise, nothing. That's gone. Yeah, they have their suburban papers, and that's great, and they do a fine job. But the Chicago presence itself, nothing from the Tribune. So it's basically the Sun-Times rolling with it. And Mike O'Brien, love him to death. He's a basketball guy first and foremost, but again, he's also a Public League guy as well. And if it wasn't for OB, and certainly Mike Clark as well, I'll throw into that mix. I don't think anyone would know what's going on outside of the CPL, what's going on with the city and these things. So Mike and those guys, total credit and kudos to them for continuing to bring these subjects up. And, people outside of Chicagoland and outside of Chicago public league, it's a public league, who cares? Well, no, you have to care. And we discovered this during districting and all these other issues. And when they go on strike, the impact that is felt, public leagues, a huge impact in IHSA and what happens with scheduling in particular. So all of a sudden, if the public league has a delay starting the season, the impact that has is a huge impact on the season. So whether it's the IHSA getting more involved with the public league, whether it's the public league starting to get a little bit on the stick, something's got to improve, because this is bordering on the ridiculous now. And it seems like the only time we hear anything out of the CPL is them reacting to people reacting to what they're not doing. So again, glad that there's media. There's guys like Michael Bryan in the Sun-Times that will call them out and say what's going on. Because honestly, if it wasn't for that, I don't know how much of this any of us would have really heard at this point. And public league, come on. I mean, you've got to do this. You've got to get these kids. And I understand Chicago's a totally different deal when it comes to the COVID pandemic. It's a very involved. It's the area most impacted by far around the state. So I get it. We all get it. You're going to be slower to the table than everyone else because of this, but don't let it be because of not planning and not having something in place. I mean, that they have to operate better than that. And I'll say it's every sport across the board. So, and it's so important to the kids and so important to those coaches and everyone that puts their blood, sweat, and tears into it in the public league. I mean, it's got to be handled better, and it's got to be more action than reactionary. Right now, it's just reactionary, and it's almost like a 3-day echo before you hear something back, and it has to change. It really does. So, wanted to talk about that as well. Again, I know it's frustrating for a lot of people. So that's it. So just some thoughts, and again, stay tuned. Lots coming your way. Continue to run out all kinds of stories, team previews, breaking down of various things. I'm breaking down some 8A through 5A now, and it'll continue. So stay tuned. Thanks, everybody, and have a great week, and I'll be in touch soon.